I would come here and excited to give that speech. Congratulations. We're all here for that, aren't we? So the next portion of the meeting is the table topics, led by Harvey Fisher, and his comment was, my Uncle Morris was the organizers of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. He was tough, strong, and kind. He was an inspiration to all his family. Please welcome Harvey.
Yeah. By the way, today I just found out that my wife's cousin wrote a book about the family history. And he lives in Vancouver. And my daughter discovered this and started to contact some of the relatives. So my wife has found all these cousins living in the Vancouver area in Canada. And a few years ago, my aunt's cookbook, she had a vegetarian restaurant in Vilna, Lithuania, and wrote a cookbook, which was then declared a rare book and was translated in English, and it was considered the Moosewood Cookbook of Yiddish. And as a result of that, a lot of my cousins got in touch with us, and I found I have cousins in New Zealand, Australia, Israel, and in England, and in the United States. So I've discovered all this family, which is a great pleasure. Now, for the questions, first question, Mark.
Yes.
Would you tell us a little bit about your family, please?
Sure. I don't know if this is on or not. My family is all actually pretty local. I'm from Maine originally. My family's from French Canadian heritage. I think most of the people moved from France over to Quebec and then down to Maine. They worked in the mills in Waterville, Maine, where I grew up. I've got a father and mother, which they're wonderful people, a brother and a sister. They all live in Maine and Massachusetts now. My wife is from Connecticut. She's got a brother, Blake, he's a guitar player. He's a really great dude. And wonderful parents as well, who have been really supportive. For this next journey in my life, I actually welcomed a daughter about 2 months ago, Vivian Marie Lavey. She was a little early, a little premature. She was born 5 pounds, 5 ounces, but she's doing great. She's been gaining weight. She's up to 8 pounds now. The pediatricians are really excited about that. So we're just extremely blessed. We had them down last weekend for Easter, and just having everybody in the room together, having a daughter, that's my family. So they're great people and have been really supportive for us as we welcomed a new addition. So that's them.
Liana, who are you closest to in your family?
Who am I closest to in my family? I am closest to my children. I came from a blended family, so they've kind of been raised with that as well. And so when I think about who I'm closest to, who I think about all the time, who I'm proudest of, it's them. And I include them in everything. So, for example, I'm going to run a 5K on Sunday. My daughter's running it with me. She lives 50%, my kids live 50% of the time with their father, 50% of the time with me. So we have apps that we use. So we are always competing against each other. So I'll share my runs and then she'll share her runs and we'll compare those. I text with my children all through the week when they're not with me, and they can talk to me, and I feel really good about that. So I'm just really proud to have 3 awesome young adults who I'm very close to.
Jennifer, Jen. Yes, I do have a question. Do you have a group of, belong to a group or have a friend who you consider family?
So I would say my best friend is someone who I grew up with in Framingham, where I grew up. And it's funny because she's a devout Christian, and I study shamanism. I study everything outside of the norm. And it's funny, we are so close because our paths are very much the same. We tend to, you know, if I say something that I learned, she'll say it in the Christian way, and it just coincides with each other. And we can come together without animosity. Like I find some Christians might come at me at a different angle, where she comes at it very loving. So being in my 40s, it's good to have that, because she's like a sister to me.
Rob, we have time for one more?
Yeah, yes we do. We have time maybe even for 2 more.
Okay.
I'd say 1 more.
Dinesh. Do you have any regrets about losing contacts with family members?
Losing contacts. Thank you, Harvey. Not really losing contacts, but when Brendan talked about his father dressing up really well, it just reminded me about my father. And growing up, I used to go through his trunk. I remember looking at lots of formal jackets, just like what Rob Kanzer is wearing. Then I asked my father, how come you're not wearing any of these things? That is that, don't have to, British already left. So you don't have to wear these jackets. And I never saw my father wearing those jackets. When British were there, many people wore those formal jackets. Only now, these days, in 90s and 2000s, people started wearing these formal jackets because of the American influence. But also what reminded his mentioning was that he used to tell us a lot of stories. We used to listen to those stories sitting there very obediently. And I still remember those stories now. So I try to pass on those stories to my daughter these days. And I tell her, and she looks at me for a while and says, okay, Papa, can I play with my phone now? So I'm not interested. So, who knows what the future holds? Yeah, thank you.
Just 1 more.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Chris. Who do you turn to for advice in your family, and why?
I'd say I turn to my immediate family for advice most of the time. My parents and my sister, because they're the ones I feel closest to. I'm blessed to have a family that I am close to, that I love, and that I get along with really well, and that extends to my extended family as well. On my mom's side, I grew up with my cousins and aunts and uncles getting together on a weekly basis on my mom's side of the family. A few of my cousins actually grew up with me here in Lexington and went to the public schools with me. And to this day, we still get together on a weekly basis for dinner. But this summer, actually, my family is going to have its biggest event ever to date, and it's with my sister's wedding. And she's getting married in June, and she's having her wedding in Northern Ireland. So we're going to be spending a whole week there with both sides of my extended family and, of course, my immediate family. We're going to be doing all kinds of activities, including including touring Northern Ireland in these large commercial touring buses. So it should be an amazing family experience that I'm looking forward to. Thank you.